Welcome to Humans of Business, the podcast where we uncover the human side of successful businesses. Here we speak with business leaders about the human traits that fuel success and how embracing who we are can shape the way we do the business. Every business starts with a human, so let's learn from real humans, one story at a time. My name is Yuri. I help people and brands shine through communities and personal connection. And my guest is Balach Hussain, a people coach by day and a writer and amateur athlete by night, who uses the Pantarei Approach to help individuals and business find clarity, resilience, and joy at work in life, and a founder of letsroll.ai, a tool that helps you reach beyond resumes for your perfect opportunity. So welcome, Balach.
Thank you, Yuri, for having me.
I had this amazing opportunity to try a Pantarei approach. So I'm like the living example of how it works, and I just loved it. Like you're definitely an amazing coach, an amazing human. And coming back like 2 years ago when we had this freelance thrive sucks conversation, and you told about your approach of meeting new people and joining new teams and creating friendships. I ever since was connected to you and wanted to learn more every time, every moment. So here's a great opportunity to ask you some more questions. And to start, tell me one thing about you that I can't find on your LinkedIn profile.
Wow, that's a crazy question to start with. I've somehow patience come to my mind.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know if you noticed that in my LinkedIn profile, but I am quite a patient person in terms of my long-term goals. And when it comes to my short-term goals, I have gotten better at being impatient and getting things out the door. So perhaps that shows, perhaps it doesn't, but I think that is a quality that I definitely am very grateful for.
What do you mean by saying being patient about long-term goals?
So one of the things I realize in life is that oftentimes we leave our long-term vision to chance. From thinking about it, from conceptualizing it, from writing it, to actually starting to execute on it. And then, of course, no path goes as planned, right? So your plan is linear, and then the path is all over the place. And that's where we often let the setbacks dictate how we feel. And when I talk about patience, what that means is being able to regain perspective and readjust and still keep going. No matter how small the step is. It doesn't mean you go with the same intensity, because I feel all the ideas that come to us, our life vision that comes to us, um, it takes us time even to understand what we envisioned in the first place. And then to allow that to integrate, allow that to manifest, allow that to challenge you, and through that process to grow and become a new person and eventually get to a point where the vision changes or the thing is complete, that requires patience. You cannot be impatient with those things. So that's what I mean by it.
How do you feel about signs of universe?
I love them. I love them. I often I got into this idea of synchronicity through Carl Jung. I'm very interested in psychoanalysis, particularly Jungian psychoanalysis, and he has some wonderful ideas, and one of them is synchronicity. And I try to notice it. I'm getting better at it. There are times when I also note down in my notebooks. There are many pages where, in fact, a couple of weeks ago, I was looking at one of my notebooks and I had a string of 6 or 7 things that happened in a week. And now I don't even remember all the 6 or 7 things that happened because I wrote them down as symbols for me to remember in that moment. So the universe does give us signs. Sometimes we're too stubborn to notice them or to follow them or to appreciate them. That's speaking for myself. But I like them. I wish we would be attentive enough to notice more. I think life would be very interesting if we did.
Hmm. How do you know if it's a sign or if it's just a random thing?
Um, How I know it for myself, this sounds weird, right? To answer that question. Uh, for myself, I think in terms of everything else that could have happened, but it did not. And this thing happened that I see as a sign. And that is where I say this is synchronicity. This is a sign from the universe. This is not something, that would happen randomly. So when I decided to go back to my Pantarei Approach studies 4 months ago, that was right after Freelance Unlocked. And I came to the conference, and I had two reasons to come to the conference. One, I got a heavily discounted ticket from another person, thanks to you. And then the second reason was that you were going to be there, and because we have been in touch, and I also feel your energy, and I like how you are and how you move in the world, and I appreciate these encounters to be actually in physical presence of a person that you admire. So that was the second reason, and the third one was, let me learn something. Let me see what this whole freelance world is about, because I have a on-off relationship with freelance world. Even though I do it, I do it in my weird and wonderful way. And then I came there, and there were a bunch of talks, and there was a talk by Matteo Cassese, and it kind of amplified the process that was happening in me already. And then I came back. I had a conversation with my wife, who is a Pantarei Approach practitioner for many years already now. And I said, I think I have to go back to coaching again and like complete my studies, because previously I didn't take the certificate. And then we checked, and there was a new batch starting 3 days later. Um, and she said, well, why don't you write to the school? Maybe they have a spot free. And I did, and they had a spot free, and they were happy to have me back. And literally, that is exactly how it happened. Now, I wasn't thinking about going back to studies for the last year and a half. In fact, 3 years ago, I decided not to pursue coaching and continue with tech startups. But this is, any number of things could have happened that day. I could have also said, I'm really tired, as I was from all the talks. I'm relatively an introverted person, and it takes a lot of energy for me to be in presence of a lot of moving things. And then this conversation wouldn't have happened, and I wouldn't have gone back. But somehow it did. And so, yes, long answer with an example to how do I notice these signs from the universe?
Tell me a little about the business that you're building at the moment.
So I'm building two businesses. One is letsroll. You know about that, letsroll.ai. It's an alternative job platform, heavily loaded with AI features. Lets you do all sorts of things. People can look that up. So that is a purely tech product. And our goal is to serve as many people as possible, but without any pressure of going into the Silicon Valley highlights reel of a startup success story. Because I did one before, and I know that when that happens, that happens. For the most part, if that is your goal, you are in it for the wrong reason. The goal is still building a great product that people love and that serves people. So that is, I would say, in its infancy. It started at the beginning of the year when we rolled out the MVP. It's only been 8-9 months, and we will continue that. The other business that I'm building is the coaching business. So obviously, we have talked about otherish giving from the book Give and Take, and I truly believe in that, and I believe in the concept of the Japanese concept of ikigai. To do something that you're good at, that you want to do, that the world needs, and that you might get paid for as well. This is the holy grail of life, right? Like then you are in flow, then you're playing, then you're not really working, and you're also contributing, and it hits all my values. So going back to my studies and starting to offer coaching sessions, and I got very lucky. A whole bunch of wonderful people said yes, and then committed to the process of 3 months of coaching sessions. And that business is really like comes from my heart, and it nourishes my heart. because every time I do that, every session is unique. It's wonderful in its own way, and it strengthens the bonds that we have with all the different people between us. And it makes the world a little bit better in some small way. If nothing else, there is one more person who is at peace or at ease in that moment. And so these are my two businesses that I'm building, both in their infancy, but this is the next 40 years of my life.
So you told me a little bit about the story of the universe speaking to you after the freelance unload, having some conversations here and there, and always like having coaching on your mind. And still, so you've built different products and teams in the technology sector, and you still have this let's roll AI like kind of tech product, and even founded two companies. So why did you decide to turn into coaching people?
So this is the story of my own personal evolution and integration, so to say. For now, looking back, I can say that I've always been interested in people from childhood, and not just interested. There are some people who are very interested in psychology. There are some people who are very interested in how business works, and the drive perhaps is to get something out of it. For me, the driving force was always about care and love and joy. And the interest really was, why is it that some happy people are sometimes extremely angry? Why is it that some people who are otherwise very kind sacrifice their joy and end up doing all sorts of terrible things? There's so much domestic violence in the world. There's obviously we know all about the international violence that is happening right in front of faces right now. And this was something that was always there. And then I lost my way, and I got into tech, and everybody needs to find their identity, and I found mine in tech, which is still kind of a creative world that helped me, and also doing sports. And I learned a lot of small things, but essentially in the last 10 years, as I grew in my technical roles, I started leading teams. I started consulting other teams. Even before I was leading my own team at Nokia 10 years ago, I was consulting other departments and teams. And this was thanks to the mentoring and support of my colleagues who saw that in me and encouraged it. And that really, over and over, with every team, with every product, every team that we grew from zero, every team that we transformed, it just kept reminding me that it's all about people. It's always all about people. The products are built by people, the products are used by people, the products are sold by people. These products in that process have an impact on people's lives. When we are at work, we are spending a major part of our day at work. And the interactions that happen there have an impact. Work doesn't just end at 5 p.m. if you leave the office at 5 p.m. Work stays with you. And I had this incredible experience. Once I started noticing this, I was at Lab 1886 and I was doing 12, 13 hours a day. That's because that is part of my shadow. I try to do the craziest best that I can, and I go above and beyond. Um, and and I noticed work was with me all the time. I was dreaming about work. I was dreaming about the from user research to financial models to how the team is going to grow and what the challenges are going to be. And it was always with me. And in a way, work became my meditation. It taught me about my mind. The things that you saturate your mind with will shape and define the future you, the actions that you will take in the future. And in that moment, I realized the most important part of all of those things was the people. Because when the people were in flow, were doing whatever they were doing with joy, it didn't matter whether they worked 5 hours or 15. It didn't matter whether the challenge was crazy big and there was regulations against us, or there was, massive processes of a mothership called Daimler that might slow us down. it was still the people and the conversations, the one conversation at a time that you were having with each stakeholder, each person, that was setting the tone for the rest of the day, the week, the month, the next few months and years of your life. And for some people, their careers, because we also had people who were just starting out. So this people part has always been with me, and over the last 10 years, I kept developing it, and I kind of became a coach, leader, person who's still able to do individual contribution, but it was in that coaching, collaborative leadership where I was getting the most energy out of. And my teams were benefiting from it, and everybody around us was benefiting from it. And so fast forward, I got an opportunity. One of my ex-bosses called me to coach his company. He was CEO in Belgium, and I went. We took a chance. I actually said no the first time and recommended somebody else. Turns out they weren't available, so it still ended up landing on my desk, and it was the most amazing experience. You know, helping some people avoid burnout. You know, bringing them back from the edge of burnout, turning some people from um, very stressed and having an impact on their health to the most energized people who without whom I wouldn't have been able to do what I did. So this interaction told me I have to honor this calling for coaching because this is something that I like to do. The world needs. I get paid for it, and it's a contribution that fulfills how I want to live my life. And so this is how we come back to coaching. And now that I decided to do it almost full time, I just love it because I
Mm.
learn so much. It's not just what I give, but it's I learn from every client. I learn every day. The books that I read, my training at the Pantarei Approach school, and everything that I'm still to learn. It's fascinating.
I truly believe that everyone can get some value out of coaching, out of having a person they can talk to discover themselves, to be kind of guided with the right questions, with the right empathy. And still, people are different people. So some people are okay, open, want to talk to. Some people are closed, defensive, and it's harder to talk to them. So I'm curious, do you work with anyone? And if no, how do you decide? How do you see if you clicked with a person?
That's a great question. So obviously, not everything is for everyone. And you wouldn't gel with every coach that is out there. Just because somebody has a certification or X number of years of experience doesn't mean that they will be the right fit for you. So there's an element of chance, there's an element of synchronicity, there's an element of what religious people would call the grace of God or the grace of the universe, the higher power that brings you together in a certain moment. Um, but beyond that, I think what it comes down to is if you can be fully present as a coach, that is my first and foremost job. Then the client can also see me exactly who I am, and they feel that. It's not something we communicate with words, but there's a sense of trust, there's a sense of safety. And if they feel that, they can also be fully open. And it also takes time, right? It doesn't happen in the first 5 minutes and then there's no question about it. It also develops over time. But the moment there is trust and the intention of the well-being of the client, and the client needs to have that intention that this is a journey towards more wholeness, more well-being, more integration, solving whatever challenge or going beyond the challenge that they come with, then everything is possible because then I'm present with you and you are present, and we have a common, clear intention, and we would find the right tools and we would have the right conversations, the right topics would come up at the right time. And not just that, one thing I learned from sports was I also know that at some point it might be that for some clients, I'm not the right person. And in that moment, I have to let them go to somebody else. I have to refer them to somebody else. And luckily, I know plenty. I did that way back then in my sports days. I was coaching Taekwondo, and a couple of my guys were extremely talented, and I was training them in competition. And we got to a certain point where I was like, okay, beyond this, for you to progress, so we got them to nationals, but to actually consistently win, you have to go train with this coach. And I made those connections, and they went, and like I have so many examples of these kind of things that have happened for me that I try to remember that as well. So when I see that I can't work with somebody, it's usually because for one reason or another, they don't feel they can be fully open with me, and I feel I can't be fully present with them. A simple example would be if someone is struggling extremely with a particular drug, if it's a extreme addiction, and I feel that while they are in that state, they can't be fully present with me, or I can't be fully present, then this wouldn't be a right fit. The intention is still there, the wish is still there, but there are certain situations where I simply feel that I cannot hold space for them, and so I would tell them that. Or if I see a client, and let's be honest, the world has all sorts of weird and wonderful situations. Sometimes there's a client who's just really curious. There are a lot of people who have so many ideas in their mind already, and they are testing the coach. I don't like that. I have no time to play those games. If you know better, just go do it. Take your own best advice. You don't have to come to me. You know. So those would be the only criteria where there's a deal breaker.
Like testing a coach sounds like dealing with a kid, because I feel like children are testing their parents from time to time, trying to see their reaction and like if it's allowed or not, like how to move forward with it. And I think that those people are just still playing some children games, so they need to grow
Yeah.
up most likely. And coming back to this example of how you had to let go of those successful students to other teacher, how did it feel?
It's a lot of us try to go for power over people. And a lot of people drive a lot of satisfaction from controlling people. And we know this in the workplace. We have all sorts of crazy bosses who would keep you in a certain position, who would play games with you, who would promise you bigger roles, but would never let go and not let you take those opportunities because it would mean they have to cede some power to you. Um, the same happens in sports. The same happens in religious communities. The same happens in wealth, because it is one of our collective shadows. Now, growing somebody from a position where you see something in them and they don't, but you agree, you go through a journey. One of my Taekwondo persons way back when, he was an extremely fit guy, technically very gifted, um, somehow didn't seem to have the right focus for competition, for the fighting. And he was more into showboating, but then end up losing. And it was as much physical as it was mindset. Even though we were training physically, the whole thing was all about mindset and focus. And we went from, let's say, 70-80% of the time losing, he was already a black belt, to 70-80-90% winning in city competitions, in regional competitions, getting selected for the provincial team to compete in the nationals. And now at this moment, I could try to keep him, a star student,
Yeah, exactly.
or I let him go to somebody better. And we did, and then he had a string of 5, 6, 7 years where he was first or second on the national level. This is a different kind of power you feel. The power to let go is a whole other trip, because this I don't know how to explain it. It's it comes from your heart. It doesn't come from your mind. It's not something you plan. It's not something where you say, okay, I let him go to this other coach and then he will start winning and then maybe we use it to market ourselves or get something out of it. But it's really with that feeling of, no, let's do what is best for this person. And even if he never comes back to train with you because now he has much better training facilities or trainers, there's a whole other level of confidence that you gain in your own character. I think that would be the best way to put it, because you know that you can, you have it in you to support without manipulating. And it's it's hard to describe in words because it's an act of faith. It's an act of total honesty, born out of a wish to care for this person, to wish the best for them, and sometimes wonderful things happen, and then that nourishes you for life. Like me telling you this story right now is like, wow, that happened. How lucky am I to have had that experience?
Yeah. And I can imagine it's hard, because usually people try to keep even other people to themselves. And like, oh my God, I won't let them go. It's like my star student. I'm their coach. I will get all this like benefits of like being a coach of star student. And then like I think it's also very, very hard emotionally, but also it brings a lot of joy when you are understanding that, okay, I'm not staying in front of this person. I'm not letting them, like, I'm not blocking them. I'm just allowing them to kind of like, you can't block the person, even if you kind of can. Still, yeah, I totally get it. And I'm curious, how does this power to let go also work for you in business and help you grow it?
So the way it works for me in business, and I think this would probably be the same for a lot of people, is goes back to that idea of you have wishes and you have plans, but life takes all sorts of interesting turns. What do you do then? You know, if you hold on too tight to what you wanted, you would just be suffering. And so the ability to let go is a skill. Just like mindfulness is a skill that you can develop over time. And in my way of conceptualizing it, when you let go of something, it also creates space for something new, something creative. As long as you're holding on to a specific idea of how my student must be or how my business must be and how many people, how many clients I must have in this month, if you don't get that, and life will give you those opportunities to to feel inadequate or not enough or not doing enough, you have to be able to let go. You have to be able to take perspective. And when you take perspective, you get very interesting ideas. For example, if you wanted, let's say in my coaching business, if I want 10 clients this month, and if I'm only at 5 or 6, now I can continue suffering, and that suffering will show up in how I work with my clients, and it'll show up in how I talk to potential clients. Because in the worst case, let's say I'm at 0 and I'm really suffering, I would come off as desperate, and that is not what you want to see in a coach. Same for business leadership. Something did not work, you can get angry, you can get sad, you can feel hurt. Sometimes things don't work because somebody didn't do their job well, and that hurts a lot. However, if you stay in that mode, this is what you're putting out in every interaction, every conversation that follows from that. But if you can let go, you can really take the better perspective, and you can say, well, if I have 2 clients, or if we did this feature, let's add more quality to that. Let's add more depth to that. Let's make the experience of these 2 clients the best ever. Let's make this feature the best way we could make it. So it is like that. And I somehow I'm remembering the words of one of my meditation teachers, and they said, the past is gone. 5 minutes ago was 5 minutes ago. There's only this moment that it's happening. You can have your visions for the future, you can have your wishes that were in the past that did not get fulfilled or that got fulfilled. It's only this moment. How do you come back to this moment and act from this moment, is where letting go is a superpower. And I think we would all benefit from it in many different ways, right? It's sometimes there are situations where there's nothing you can do, or that you could do, you should do, but you don't have the energy. There's an element of kindness towards yourself to it as well.
You just reminded me two things. First one, it was like from in the book From Good to Great, and the author told that every person, like every leader who turned their company to like great companies, they had this belief that everything will be good no matter what. So even like going through shittiest time, they kept going. So they're being on the journey, and then at some point, okay, I've just got lucky. Even though they like put a ton amount of work, and especially like have been like really, really mindful, and a lot of mind games, I would say. And a second moment, it was about this. I guess it was Bob Proctor, and I saw this small video where you had like he showed like scent clock, where you have like scent on top and scent in down, and then like here is like the scent in the down bottom part is past. Like you can do anything with this, and then he covered like the upper part, and like this is your future. You can see it. Everything that you can see is here in between, in the moment where sand is going through this small moment. So you are here, remember about it, and just focus on it. And I feel like that's something that you exactly was talking about, because you can't change past. Yes, you can learn about it, but you can change it, and you don't know future. Nobody knows the future. You just can have your belief, you can have your gut feeling maybe at some point, and just keep doing things that you are doing. And I also believe that it can be very hard, like not whining about past, and also not kind of like planning for a big future, or like sometimes planning for a big future, and it definitely can bring burnout. And you also told that you helped your clients, or like people, your coworkers, colleagues, to deal with burnout. And I'm curious, how do you deal with it yourself?
I've had burnout once in my life, and I might have come close to it maybe once or twice. How I dealt with it, it's for myself, it was the realization that things cannot continue as they have. I think this is a feeling that most people know. The burnout gets to a point where you're like, but surely this can't be it. Something has to change. And so once I had that feeling, I had to pick up the pieces, because one of the things that burnout does is it really weakens all your systems. There's somehow your energy is leaking away into some space black hole that you're not getting it, and you might be in a very high functioning state till the last moment. I was. I remember when I decided, I was working for a San Francisco based company in Singapore, doing 16, 18 hours a day, starting at 1 a.m. Singapore time, which was morning in SF, and going all the way till 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m. the next day, and then trying to sleep for 3-4 hours and then not being able to sleep. And I tried to keep it going till the last moment. But once you have that feeling, you have to, like, it becomes such a tunnel vision, and hopefully with some support or through the higher powers, you get this clarity where something needs to change. And now comes the next part where you start making the smallest change, because what you really want is the whole thing to disappear. You just want a good life. But in that moment, you can't go from 0 to 200 miles an hour with an engine that is leaking things everywhere, and the tires are worn out, and you don't have enough strength to even, hold the steering wheel, you have to start with the very simple basics. You have to take a look at your whole system and make the tiniest step. And for me personally, the tiniest step was really saying, I cannot sustain 16, 18 hours a day. I need to reduce that. And I slowly started to reduce that. Then I spoke with my bosses and I said, look, like starting at 1 a.m. is killing me. Is there any chance that I can start in the morning? I would still do 12, 13 hours instead of 16, 18, but let me at least get my circadian rhythm back in shape. That was not possible. I quit. And the universe sent me a sign. I went to meet a friend, and then he called in his boss. So he had already thought I would be a good fit, my friend, and the boss interviewed me, and but they liked me, and then I got a day job. Not a crazy job. So that is how that process started for me slowly, and then I decided to get back to my life, because that was, those were a couple of years after my amazing taekwondo career, very healthy, to completely letting it slide and losing myself in work. And I tried to do a 3 kilometer run, and I was exhausted. I couldn't. I walked half of it. The next day I was like, I'm just going to walk, and it's okay if I just walk 1 kilometer. That is literally how I started. And so that process taught me a lot of meta things about recovery. And this is one of the things that I brought to my first coaching job in this company, where we had a couple of people in that state where if you would ask them, how do you feel? The answer was, everything is shit. Everything is terrible. What do you want? Can't say a word, right? Like in such a state, that it's really hard for them to even connect with what I would want and be able to just say it, and so all the work that I did with those people was, we know this is not good. I hear you. This is where it starts from. I hear you. I see you. Now, I can imagine a future in which everything would be much better, but it is going to take a lot of work. Would you like to go on this journey with me, where we make very small improvements on a weekly, on a daily basis? And I remember with the different people, the conversations went differently. A couple of guys, they got it, in the first week, because I had one guy, he has a family, and we had exactly this conversation of, yes, everything is shit, but it's actually worse. It's worse because you don't just feel like this here, you feel like this when you go home, and that was the moment where we connected, because he was like, I can't do this to myself, I can't do this to my children, I can't do this to my family. And so we were like, you know what, if we make 0.1% improvement tomorrow, would you take it? Can we make that deal? And it was hard for him to accept that, but he did, and that's how we started. And in 3 months, whole different person, not just for himself, but for the amazing benefit for the whole company. With the other person, it took 2-3 weeks just to get to that point, to say, the intention is clearly there. I'm here. The CEO brought me in. This is proof. He's putting the money where his mouth is. He's actually bringing in an expert to support everybody. And when I say support everybody, I can tell you, this was my words, like, my commitment is infinite. It doesn't mean that you get 10% of my attention. When I'm with you, you get 100% of my attention. Now, can we take that step? And then, of course, these were 2 engineers. There were also other people in other business areas. So the concerns were slightly different for each of them, and we found the right activities, and we started making those small progresses. And we got to a point where it wasn't me who said things had changed, when they could say things had changed, and they could describe what changed, and they could describe how they feel. This was proof for me. that it is integrated enough in them that they now know. And on the person side, since we talked about humans of business and how important it is for me, the personal side of things, they didn't just transform their experience at that company. They learned something about themselves, that they deep inside, there's a part of them that knows how to be whole, that knows how to show up and care for itself in a way that is still beneficial to everybody else as well. This is something they will not lose. Most of them have changed companies since that time. A few of them are still at that company. This is what they carry forward in their life. So, dealing with burnout, to summarize again, it's literally one step at a time. And sometimes it's half a step, and that's okay.
How do you personally know when to stop and recharge so as not to slip into this everything is shit mindset?
For me, the process has become a lot more integrated and simpler. I used to be in a state where something bad would happen, let's say around 12 years ago, or I had a difficult conversation at work. It would take me 2, 3, 4, 5 days to recover from that. I would be in that mood, all the typical signs of stroppiness and not eating well, etc. But as I learned, mindfulness was the first thing that helped me. So just basic sitting, breathing practice. And then on, I learned a whole lot of different things. I got a lot of coaching sessions, which really accelerated that process because it really helped organize my mind and, start to become friends with my own system and not be in a fight all the time. And so now I have two simple practices. One is I take a nap whenever I can. Sometimes I have a string of a few weeks where I have taken an hour nap every day. If I'm working full time, then it might be in my lunch break, or it might be in the evening, even after I finish work. And this is the space where it allows me to reset. And if I don't feel the need for a nap, then I would do yoga nidra, or Huberman has a very technical name for it. I think it's NSDR, non-sleep deep rest. Or in the lingo of mindfulness, it's basically body scan. So I do that, and that really works wonders for my body and mind. And if something doesn't work out as I wanted, this usually sorts it out. And if there is something on my mind, I go into that resting period with that intention and I work through it. I do work a lot through my mind. But that is another skill that we can talk about. Like working with your thoughts is another wonderful ability that one can develop, and I've found my way with it.
I feel like working with the mind is a whole different topic for a different podcast conversation that we can talk about like for hours. And I'm curious, how do you define success beyond financial metrics?
Very simple. If you feel being in flow with life, this is success. So it's not so much about the specific activities you would be doing. Those would be different for everybody. They're different for you as they are for me and my friends. We are all very unique in that way. And if you are able to return to peace, so when I talk about peace, I really mean it, a feeling of peace inside you. It's not a catatonic state. It's not a state as sometimes they show some 150-year-old Buddhist monk in a sitting position. That is also peace, but that's a different game altogether. For the rest of us living in cities and essentially getting ourselves into very extreme situations with work and everything else, if you can return to peace without a struggle or without a big struggle, this is success.
Mm.
Because when you're in that state, everything else that follows is great. Your interaction with your children is amazing. It's again from that present moment, and all of you is available to it. Things might still need to happen. You mentioned the 9 drones that crossed into Poland, or 19. Things would still happen. There would still be thoughts. There would still be things you're planning for the week after. Emails to write, etc. But if you can return to peace and act from that place, it's a wonderful position to get in, and that is for me true success in life.
What makes you happy?
Many things. Coaching makes me happy. Another way to put it is connecting with other people in a really nice space makes me happy. This is what coaching does provide. Sports make me happy. I love sports. You said I'm an amateur athlete by night. It's true. I'm in my club's paddle club's team. I love to move my body and keep learning, challenge myself. Still, I have no more dreams of going to the Olympics as I did when I was in my 20s. But movement is just amazing. And I do CrossFit and I love that. And lucky for me, both of these things are now very present in my life. So I have things that make me happy in that sense. Movement, connection with other people. I also really enjoy my rests and reflections. There is something to that part that really, when I gain an insight, and usually it's an insight into myself, um, it's a really nice feeling. And good food makes me happy. I love to cook. I don't have a big repertoire, but I try my best, and my friends like it. So I love to cook. I love this seeing this feeling on somebody's face when we're eating together. They go like, "Actually, I like this. I enjoy this," and it's just it melts my heart.
Balaj, I have so many questions and I still wish to have the sky as a limit, but time is a limit. So the final one, what's one thing that you are really good at that no one knows that you are really good at?
Wow, that's a tough one. Um, I think a lot of people don't know about my spirituality. And I'm really grateful for all the teachers that I've had, because that has been a big contributor in how I see life, how I live my life. I would have said how I think about things, but this I think a lot of people see when they read what I write, and when they see my outward expression. But I think deep down, yeah, it's that. Maybe it's a too meta of a question. Maybe cooking was the right answer. A lot of people don't know that I'm really good at cooking.
Yeah, I feel like every answer is the right answer. And what is the best way to connect with you?
At the moment, the best way to connect with me is through my website, coachbalach.com. There you would also find my Instagram, my LinkedIn. Those are the 2 channels I use to communicate with most people. So find me on LinkedIn or Instagram, or just go to my website, coachbalach.com, and you will find everything else.
And last but not least, name 2 people I should have this podcast conversation with.
Oh, that's a tough one. I know so many wonderful people. I would highly recommend one of my Pantarei school teachers, and I would name all 3 of them. And good luck, because they're all 3 wonderful. I can't choose. So Vered Manase, Claudia Glovik, and Merav Ari. These are 3 wonderful women. And they are running this business. They are incredible coaches with over 25, 30 plus years for each. Combined, I think almost 100 years of experience. and they're running the school, so they can talk about the business aspect, but they have amazing hearts, and they would be one of the perfect people to interview. A second person, too many names come to my mind. So I would love to recommend Leon van der Pas, one of my ex-bosses in my mind, always one of my bosses, an amazing person, an incredible leader, amazing mind for business. He might be extremely busy though, but again, good luck. I think that would be amazing to have him. In my very close circle right now, I would suggest Dave Feldman. He's an amazing, experienced product person, and currently in a fractional mode. So who knows if he goes back to employment or entrepreneurship. He has also done a couple of startups. So there you go.
Just 5 people. Okay, thank you, Balaj. Yeah,
I will send you a list later.
yeah, it's always amazing, to see how people are connected with each other in the world, because like, as they have the saying, like, name 5 people around you and I will tell who you are. And I don't know why, but every time I have the conversation with you, I have this feeling at peace. So you are always like this calm, mindful approach, a little bit of love, a little bit of thoughts, a little bit of mindfulness. It's like a big mix in yourself, and I really appreciate it, and I just love every conversation we have. And thank you so much for allowing to go just a little deeper today into your human part and talking about very, very deep things. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Yuri. It's always a pleasure to have a conversation with you, and I'm glad we could record the podcast today as well. So thank you.
And yeah, see you in the business world. And thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions about how the community can help you reach and overcome your business goals faster, let's connect on LinkedIn and talk about it. That's it. We're done. See you in the next episode.